And I had really hoped that Trump would be a paragon of true liberty. He's done a lot of good things like TPP and trying to get jobs back. But I got to tell you, the health care bill he supported, bad. This new spending bill, bad. A lot of the things he's doing, going after Julian Assange, when he said, Julian, release it all. If we were going to indict Julian Assange, who's a hero, or Snowden, who I think is a hero, then we've got to have Trump call for his own indictment. And somebody who's really been warning of that is former Congressman and, of course, medical doctor Ron Paul, who is undoubtedly the greatest living granddaddy of the liberty movement worldwide that we see just exploding. So, again, a lot of good things happening, a lot of bad things happening. But the fact that even Trump would get elected as a patriot, as a nationalist, as kind of a libertarian, whether he ends up delivering on that or not, it shows how far we've come. But as Ron Paul always said, he had some chances to win the presidency. He was leading in many states. He said, when I get in, I'm not going to be a dictator. I can't fix it all. It's a cultural thing. But I think we've hit bottom. I think we're coming back. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see what Ron Paul, with his great Liberty Report, reaching millions every day on radio and TV, joining us from Houston. What do you make of Donald Trump so far? It does appear that he's really starting to go off track of what he said he was going to do.
Well, I think people are starting to recognize that now. Our biggest problem in evaluating Trump is we don't know what he'll say tomorrow or the day before yesterday because it's back and forth. You know, we sort of liked him before he was elected because searching for things that I liked the fact that he thought we ought to be more reasonable dealing with Russia. And then he changed all of a sudden, but just recently again, he's talking about, hey, we better lay off Russia. So it's this lack of understanding of what his real policies are means that the unpredictability of this is very disturbing. We ought to at least know where people stand.
Well, I agree. You wrote on your Liberty Report last week about, you know, here's President Trump saying, I love WikiLeaks, give him a medal, and then now he's saying arrest WikiLeaks. I mean, that is a real betrayal when WikiLeaks was exposing criminal activity. There's your headline, Candidate Trump, I love WikiLeaks. President Trump, arrest Assange. Trump claims he's all about loyalty, and I've seen that in his past. Do you think the deep state has gotten to him?
Oh, you know, it's hard for me to figure out. We can say what he has done, but we can't really read his mind on what's going on. I don't think he approaches things, as so many of us try to do, from a philosophic principle. I think his principle is pragmatism and do what you have to do or whatever crosses your mind at the moment. But it would be very, very disappointing if he was calling everybody's bluff, that he was saying everything intentionally. Oh, I'm going to get in office and I'm going to be the best neocon ever. You know, this sort of thing. That would be the most distasteful. The best excuse I can give him is that he doesn't come from a firm set of principles, and then he does yield to the political pressures because he does express things like, oh, I didn't know this was so complicated, and it is true. He didn't know too much about how things worked in Washington, and you can't run Washington like you run a business, and that's always been a mistake to think that you can. Because it isn't a business. You can't, businesses are run efficiently and governments are inefficient. And that is the reason you want very little government, because they can't manage health care. It isn't the mismanagement, it's the fact that they're trying to manage health care. So that's the way it is with government. And now he's recognized this, and he can't bully his way through that and just say, I am the boss, you know, and this is what's going to happen. There are too many everybody's in Washington thinks they're the boss, and they like to play this game, and they don't come from the position of what we really want is a lot less government. So when he talks about draining the swamp, some of us have in our minds, oh, that means he's going to have a lot less, you know, government spending. But the spending, it's the same old stuff. The spending is going to go up, and the militarism is going to go up. So, and our First Amendments are going to be attacked, and Planned Parenthood is going to get their money plus a little. So that has to be discouraging to a lot of people who had supported Trump.
So the swamp really isn't getting drained. I mean, I guess it's getting drained a little bit. What's happening is Trump's getting drained.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a bit of realism there for him. But I think, you know, it was unrealistic to say that, you know, just look at me and I can do this, this, this. I mean, there was a lot of positive things, but people wanted the positive things. You know, one of the characteristics of Ronald Reagan was that people saw him as being very positive and not talking about the problems. Sometimes what I'm amazed at is over the years, I've talked about all the problems. and I feel like, oh, I'm too negative. But the one thing is so many young people, if they listen to our message and you come up with just a hint, this doesn't have to be this way. There are an answer. Actually, describing something as negative is a blessing and it's a positive because you're telling them the truth and they recognize it. But to say that everything is rosy without really describing it and what you're going to do. So I feel very comfortable in describing the problems of the Federal Reserve and the budget spending and the foreign policy and the attack on civil liberties. But then to come up with the answer, which is a constitutional answer, as well as an answer that is embedded with the principles of liberty, and that if you're looking for peace and prosperity, you go in that direction. So it's a very positive message. And I think you've recognized this over the year, that people like to hear that. And you can still talk about the negatives, but it comes across as telling the truth rather than just saying everything is hunky-dory. All we have to do is ABC and everything is going to be perfect again. See, after a while, that is not believable.
Absolutely.
I think that's what's happening. That's what's happening right now. People are realizing that the rhetoric has far surpassed the results.
Dr. Ron Paul, you mentioned attacks on free speech, and I want to get into that in a moment because you've had that happen, I've had that happen. But I happen to know the president does respect you. He says he respects you. He's getting along with Rand now and is hopefully listening to him about getting a better bill to replace Obamacare, not just have Obamacare light. So it's good to see Rand, who I think is the best senator in Congress. Matt Drudge agrees with that, and obviously met with him a month ago or so and said he is the best senator, obviously from your tutelage and his own research in life. He does have the grasp on that. I would hope that the president would get closer to Rand and you know, obviously get more of his advice because your son is more of a purist Americana. But separately from that, just spend a few minutes on advice to the president, because I know he does actually tune into the show. He does actually crave what the public thinks. He respects you. Just spend a few minutes on what you would say to the president.
Well, of course, you know, if you're not invited, it doesn't do much good. But I can try to accommodate what you're saying. But it's very rare that people in Washington really want your advice. I was always told is study hard, understand it, present your case. And somebody will come to you, and there will be a job for you, and you present your case. And on a few occasions in Washington, I had other members come that were very serious, you know, and they did a bit of a conversion, you know, say on foreign policy or something. So that is always possible. But to just decide you're going to advise somebody, it's not real practical. They're not going to pay a lot of attention. But indeed,
sure. What should Trump do then? I mean, he does listen to you. He says he respects you. He's tweeted that. I mean, he will listen to you. I mean, what do you think Trump's done good? What's he done bad?
Well, I think he's backed down on, you know, the spending and all. And if my advice would be, let the Congress go ahead and pass these bills. Tell them what you want, let them pass it, and then veto the bill. You know. But try not to be flip-flopping all over the place. You know, some of us really want him to do what he claimed he was going to do. But, you know, when I look at it, then all of a sudden I see, well, all the presidents said in recent years, the one that is a little less militant is usually the one that wins the election, and Trump was less militant. So I would say work toward consistency and get rid of the flip-flopping. And if you believe in less government, stick to that. But you can't pretend to hold on to people who want less government, and you're increasing the budget, and you spend more money and say you want to spend it on such and such. Oh, well, we'll give you that.
Well, let me ask you this then. Where do you think it's going? Because he did some good things like TPP and a lot of other things, but then suddenly it seemed by day 70 really went off trajectory. I think that's part of that coup against Bannon. As soon as Bannon was demoted, we saw the trajectory change. Is there any way in your mind to get him back on trajectory?
Yeah, well, I think it's very secondary to what's going on because, you know, let's say tomorrow there's a beginning of an economic bust like it happened in 2008. Trump's not responsible for that, but he'll get blamed for it, that sort of thing. So I think things are out of control of an individual like this. So it's not what should Trump do. The country is bankrupt, and doing what they're doing, the establishment, Republicans and Democrats, I mean, they have always gotten together with these omnibus bills and these continuing resolutions, and they always spend more money. They endorse intervention overseas. They endorse the financial system, the Federal Reserve. They're not opposed to
more of the same.
But it's not. But it's not because all of a sudden Trump isn't sticking to his word. It's the fact that the country is addicted to spending.
I was about to say, we saw federal agencies just ignore him when he was trying to do the right thing, and just basically the deep state refusing, something you've talked a lot about. So let's speak to that. Sorry, go ahead.
But the people are responsible too. Congress is a mess. But the people, why they had to back off, why the Republican leadership backed off on Obamacare, is the yelling and screaming and the noise that was made by people saying, I have a right to medical care, I want free medical care, and you can't take it away from us. So there's still a lot of people out there are still bleeding.
So it doesn't matter if it bankrupts our health care, they want something, quote, free today.
Right, and that's the bigger problem compared to what's Trump going to do tomorrow versus yesterday.
Sure, we're the problem. Our decadent population is a problem.
Unless you accept a different position on the role of government, none of this is going to be solved. And I think that no matter what we put up in Washington, we're going into a very, very dire economic problem. And I think our empire is going to end. And unfortunately, the whistleblowers are going to be attacked more than ever. But in the end, what we need is a whole generation of people advocating and understanding what liberty is all about. That's what happened during our original revolution.
Sure.
And now we don't need the old revolution. We need the expansion of those views that were held by the founders. And it has to be endorsed, not just by a few of us. We need more people to the point where not every TV now supports the state. You can't.
Government
Republican
brainwashing.
TV is not much better than the Democratic TV.
So we need 1776 2.0. So in the few minutes we have left, let me bring this up to you. I don't know if you saw it, but it was in national news. I got the secret documents through Mike Cernovich that Google was spending millions of dollars to delist InfoWars. And they listed because I played clips of Ron Paul saying this is probably a false flag in Syria, and because I played Putin, and because I played some army colonels. And they said, this is an example of fake news, so delist Alex Jones and have an army of trolls go out and start voting him down. Now, because we published the document 2 days later, they said, okay, rogue contractors did that. We're going to stop now. But it wasn't because you were fake news. They admitted in 2013, 2016 that the rebels got caught launching fake attacks. We had this rush to judgment. The British ambassador says it's clearly the rebels. It sets a precedent where the rebels can stage events, and then we rush to judgment. Your son helped lead the move in the Senate to not have a rush to judgment in 2013 and be Al-Qaeda/ISIS's Air Force. So we've now gotten to the point where I have a member of the Federal Reserve Board of New York suing me. I've been told shut up. I have George Soros' firm suing me. I have Dr. Corsi breaking that Obama looted $300 billion out of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac for Obamacare. I've been told shut up about that or we'll destroy you. So that's the type of stuff, the type of messages that I've got now. I know as a congressman you probably got threats too, but I've never had it at this level. What do you make of that, and why do you think they were so scared of me? They listed playing Ron Paul clips.
Well, they're protecting the state, and they're protecting the deep state as well. Two individuals that went to prison that were in Congress for one major reason, they were both very, very strong anti-IRS and wrote books against it. And I think that was their major problem. And the same way, what we have developed here is sort of a fascist system. The government doesn't own Google and all this social media, but they have control over it, and they've sold out to the government because they're collecting all the information. And the government doesn't collect this, but if we need it, Google will give it to us, and all these Facebook, they'll give it to them because they're exempt from any liability. The Congress gave them the exemption that you can't go in this. If somebody in social media has turned over your information, they're not liable. But the Congress gave them that. So it's a mixture of big business and big government, and it's a terrible thing. And there's big money involved. It has nothing to do with helping the poor people or helping the middle class get medical care. It's power and it's control and it's the protection of the state, and that's why whistleblowers are the greatest enemies of this. Truth becomes treason when you have an empire. We have an empire, so anybody who tells the truth, and it'll be in relative levels, they're going to go after those individuals. So that's what we're up against. When I left the Congress this past time, I listed some of the concerns, and my number one concern was the destruction of the First Amendment to speak out, believing sincerely that if you and I still have the privilege, the right to speak out without the government coming down on us, that we could change the system, because ideas have consequences and they're more powerful than armies. But our enemies, the opposition, understands this, because if we can silence people, we can silence those ideas. I don't think they can. Ideas can't be stopped by the armies, and we know that. So I think the ideology is where the battle has to be, not with what Trump is going to do tomorrow and what's the Congress.
I agree. Well, let me just say this in closing. I am very honored to be demonized like you have been over the years. I'm very honored to join that exclusive club. It's just crazy the way they lie, the way they twist, the way they call us racist when we're the total opposite of that, promoting Martin Luther King. And I just see, as you say, all the economists saying if we don't turn things around soon, we're going to implode into a worldwide depression. And I just feel sorry for the people in the establishment. Most media admits that they're not really against us, but they will lose their job if they don't attack us. And so, there's got to be some way that we all just speak out and kind of turn the tide here. But in closing, do you think there's any way to turn around economic collapse now? And, where do you see all this militarism going? Where do you see this planet going?
Well, in theory, you can. I mean, if you had the right people in the right places and in the Congress, you could devise a transition, actually. And that's what I talked about in the presidential races, where you could do it as a transition.
Phase out.
You would have to systematically cut back. The odds of that happening is essentially nil. So what we have to do is continue to present the case for the cause of liberty, to replace the system that will self-destruct. I mean, there was no self-planning about how to get rid of communism and the communist system. And
the old empire just fell.
It just happened. It fell apart, and it wasn't because we built more weapons. It was a flawed system. Our system is flawed. It will collapse. We probably won't have enough good sense to just cut back, because the people who are dependent on the government, and like I said, the rich and the poor, become dependent.
Sure.
So when the collapse comes, we have to have enough people understanding what true liberty is all about, and we have to advance the cause of liberty more so than even the advancement we had at the time of our revolution.
So you think it's fair to say Trump is not averting the collapse and it's closer than ever?
Well, I think it's not relevant. I don't think anybody in Washington at the moment is very relevant, because I think what people are thinking and learning in their schools and where they're getting their information,
the fight's on the ground,
is relevant, and trying to get some young people to be involved to help with the
Sure. Then last question: aren't you concerned historically as a historian, not just a doctor and a former congressman, but I know you're with the Von Mises Institute as an economist and historian. Don't governments and empires almost always launch a war before they let themselves fall? China's teetering, the EU's teetering even worse than us. We're teetering. We're the best house in a bad neighborhood. This just, if you look at this historically and project forward, this is like a dystopic novel, what we're going into.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether it's that deliberate, but the war is related. I think the wars bring you to the destruction, and we've been involved for all these years, and we're involved steadily right now, and that's totally out of control. So that will bring it. They might try to make a bigger war, but by the time it's recognized how bad off we are, they won't be able to. So war is related, but the wars have already been there, and that's hurrying up the destruction of the economy, and it will bring us down economically.
Sure. Well, your son's teaching a course on dystopia, and the left's mad at him. It seems like they think on May Day that communism's great. When look at Venezuela, look at everywhere else. Is the best website RonPaulLibertyReport.com? Because you've got a lot of websites.
Yeah, I know. The LibertyReport.com is the one that we're working the hardest on, and that's where our program comes out every day at 11 o'clock Central Time. It's live, but it's been very successful. It's growing, and the more people that can join us there, the happier we'll be.
All right. Well, thank you for the time. And I got to say it again. You used to work yourself to death, and you look great. But for your age, you look like 10 years younger now. So let me guess, you like being a journalist now?
Well, I don't think of myself as anything in particularly other than trying to fully understand what liberty means, who benefits, and a better way to present it to the people who are interested in learning. A
true watchman on the wall, a 21st century Paul Revere. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Have a great week coming up, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.